You know that Keeley Companies is all about fostering the world-class culture through their incredible cultural pillars. Well, it was time to add a seventh cultural pillar, Keeley Green. Guided by the mission to raise the sustainability standards by which they design, build, operate, and live, Keeley Green is dedicated to using a holistic approach to leave a positive impact on our environment, create a future that is sustainable for generations to come. In the words of Rusty Keeley, we are just getting started. You can learn more about that just getting started mentality and all the work they do by visiting my friends at Keeley Companies online at keeleycompanies.com.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the #1 national best-selling author of the book On Fire. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, and he's the host of the Live Inspired podcast. John interviews extraordinary individuals on their life story so that you can wake up from accidental living and more fully live your life story. Here's your host, John O'Leary.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. Did you know 84% of Americans say stress impacts them as deeply as trauma? Today's guest, Rebecca Heiss, is a stress psychologist whose work is reshaping how we think about pressure, performance, resilience, and stress. Today, Rebecca joins us to share how we can reframe stress as a tool for growth. In other words, it may not be a bad thing. How to move from trauma to post-traumatic growth, and why curiosity is often the best way through anxiety. With research-backed examples and real-life stories, she explains why your belief around stress, not the stress itself, may be what is holding us back in life. It's an incredible conversation, my friends. If you are carrying more than your fair share right now, whether personally, professionally, emotionally, then this conversation today is for you. You will leave a little lighter. You will leave absolutely empowered, and you will leave equipped with a new mindset that helps you navigate stress, not as something to run from, but something instead as a signal that you're on the edge of something meaningful. Well, family, friends, brothers and sisters, buckle up, get ready for it. Open up your favorite Live Inspired journal, and let's go to work together as we bring on my friend, now yours, Dr. Rebecca Heiss. Dr. Rebecca Heiss, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait for this conversation.
Well, we're about 11 minutes into it. We've already laughed about 36 times, and now I finally have hit record. So let's get after it, Rebecca. You hear this long, rambling introduction of your past and your experience and your impact. But if you had to introduce yourself to our audience, what do you do?
I'm a stress physiologist, which basically means I help people use their stress as fuel rather than as something they have to fight against. That's what I do.
You think that's uncommon in the world we live in to try to pivot from being leveraged down by stress to using it for something good?
I do. I mean, I don't hear that very frequently, right? We hear about all the ways we're supposed to get rid of stress and how bad for you stress is. And so this is really just a mindset shift that is incredibly powerful that are used by all the top performers. So
In so many of our episodes, we spend a ton of time talking about personal stories,
mm,
the narrative, and I want to spend a little bit of time in yours. I think it's intriguing and awesome, and it forms you into who you are in front of me.
mhm.
But I also want to let our audience know on the front side, we're not going to spend a ton of time there because the work you do today is so important.
Thank you.
And the work we all are doing in our lives as we are weighed down by the misery that is our lives and our relationships and our stress and travel. And I mean, listen, what do we want to do with that going forward ultimately? And it's a big deal how we respond to that question. So, Rebecca, that's where we're going to be going next. But before we get there, I got to hear a little bit about growing up. I believe you grew up in New York. Is this accurate?
It is accurate. Although when I say that, people assume Manhattan. And I'm like, wait, no. I grew up in a really, really small town in upstate New York. Shout out to Norwich, New York. The graduating class had about 100 people. So more cows than people. It was great. It was a wonderful place to grow up. Played a lot of basketball. My dad was the local minister. My mom was a school teacher. It was a little idyllic childhood.
So you brought up the word dad. We're going to talk about him for a moment. How did dad end up calling you Skeeter?
Oh man, I can't believe you know that. That's a deep dive. Yeah, so Skeeter, because I was annoying like a mosquito. So playing basketball in the driveway, I was the youngest. And I was also the shrimp of my family, despite the fact that I'm just under 6 foot. I'm the shrimp and I'm the young person. So I'm trying really hard to keep up with all of the adults and my older sister, who is brilliant at everything she does. And so my only way to keep up was to be really annoying. So I wasn't the best shooter. I wasn't the best at defense. I wasn't the best at passing, but I could just get in people's faces and be annoying. And yeah, that's how I ended up with the name Skeeter.
Sometimes we learn what we want to become and how we want to show up because of the people who raised us. Other times we learn how we don't want to show up and how we. So your mom and dad, what did you
Mhm.
learn about relationship with stress and anxiety and struggle from your dad?
Ah, my dad is probably one of the most wise people that I have ever met. And a lot of that is because he doesn't try to control what he can't. I'll just tell a quick story. When I was 8 years old, our house burnt to the ground. It was right around Christmas time. The snow was coming down upstate New York. We were cooking some gingerbread, and everybody thought like, oh, it was just the burning stove. And my whole family was gathered. And
Right.
eventually my dad went outside, recognized the entire top half of the house was gone, and ushered everybody outside. We all made it out safe, and a few of our possessions made it. But he taught me in that moment just the power of community and the power of letting go of things that are just things, right?
Hmm.
We all have various traumas, we all have various things that are outside of our control. And that's part of life. Part of life is traumatic. Just going through it is traumatic. But if we can recognize the things that we do have shifts that we can make, for
Yeah.
example, like I still think about that fire as being one of the best things that ever happened to me because it taught
Wow.
me so much about the power of things versus community. I'd say that's what it taught me more than anything, that and the power of kindness.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
When did you make that pivot from recognizing as the ashes were being heaped by the fire
Mm.
department that
Hmm.
this was, of course it's tragic. I think
Yeah.
this about me. We've had two fires in our lives. So it's like it's
Mm.
tragic
Yeah.
and it can be a beautiful thing. So when did you begin to recognize this tragedy actually can indeed become a triumphant moment?
It was pretty early on. I think I credit the guidance of everybody around me. That evening, I had a neighbor's house to sleep in. I had a warm, safe bed to sleep in. I had food. The next day, I had clothes because the community came out. I had clothes to go to school in. I went to school the next day. A local farmer slaughtered a lamb so that we had food. It was incredible to
Right.
see everybody showing up and giving. And I remember my parents wanting to replace, I had a stuffed bear that I loved named Sagamore. And I remember them taking me to like a toy store or like multiple toy stores to try and find this bear. And as an 8 year old, I just remember sobbing, like bought me this bear and I was like, it's not right. I feel so bad. And they were like upset because they thought they'd gotten the wrong bear. And to me, it was like, it's not fair that I have so much.
Hmm.
And again, I don't know that I was that wise of an 8 year old. It was just the community that showed up around me. It's so powerful. And under moments of stress, one of the things we don't recognize is oxytocin, which is the cuddle hormone, the connection hormone, that skyrockets alongside cortisol. So the
Wow.
idea of creating community, reaching out for help and seeking help, as well as providing help when we're stressed, is one of the most powerful things that our body tells us to do, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Way cool. Tell me
Yeah.
about your mom.
My mom is one of the most creative, powerful women. She is 73 now, and she is playing in the Senior Olympic basketball tournament in a couple of weeks.
That
She's
is so
still,
awesome.
yeah, she's still a powerhouse. I'm scared to like her elbows get sharpened, every time we play. She worked full time as I grew up, and still every night found a way to be home with us, sing us songs, tuck us into bed, cook beautiful meals for us. She's an inspiration of strength and power in every way, of kindness and going after what you want. So they've both modeled being fearless and deep, deep kindness. I'm
So as
lucky.
you're modeling this, and as you're rebuilding your house and your life and looking forward, as a little girl, 8, 9, 10,
Yeah.
you're growing up, you're growing tall.
Yeah.
What do you imagine you wanted to be as you ultimately became an adult?
This is a tough question because when I was probably 8 years old, I thought I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be on Broadway, right? I loved the theater. And I remember my dad taking me to a local audition. I'd been singing the whole time. I was ready to go. And then I didn't want to go in. I just didn't want to go in. And I was so scared of failure and of rejection that I never showed up. I never went all in. I played sick, essentially. And that's one of the messages that I carry in my speaking engagements today is like, where are you playing sick? Where are you not going all in? I'd wanted to be on stage, but it wasn't safe, right? And our brain, my brain, your brain, all of our listeners' brains, they crave safety.
Right.
And so I thought, well, what am I really good at? How can I stay in my lane? And I was really good at science. So I thought, well, I'll just see where that takes me, which, 4 degrees later, here I am, and then found the theater again. So yeah, it's been an
Full
interesting
circle
trajectory.
moment.
Yeah.
So with that first degree, my understanding is it led you into the classroom, not to learn, well, I guess to learn, but to teach.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So my first degree was in biology. Actually, I did two. I did a bachelor's of science in biology and then a master's of science in biology, and quickly realized, what do I do with a master's in biology? Well, my mom's a teacher. I think I'll teach. And I loved it. I loved it. What a great, rewarding career.
Tell me what you were learning from those. You were a high school teacher at that time.
I
What were
was.
you learning from those kids?
I think the biggest lesson I took from my time in that high school was the content was the least important thing that I was doing there. The kids needed someone they could count on. And it was really, really special. I'm thinking of one kid in particular. He wasn't really grasping the material very well, but man, he showed up day after day after day, and he worked and he worked and he worked because all he wanted to do was pass his state finals. And this perseverance and this mindset of, I will, if not now, next time, if not this time, the next time. I think I really took away this idea of the possibility of growth rather than a fixed mindset. That was kind of the first time I saw it in action was in these kids.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you some questions around things I know you love. And I want you to tell me what you love about them.
Sure.
Ice cream.
I mean, wait, do we really have to get clear on why ice cream is awesome? Uh,
So I recently lost my dad, and my
I'm
dad
sorry.
loved life. Man, he loved life, loved family, loved faith,
Mhm.
loved chocolate. But if you had to say, Dad, what do you love most about all things in life? It probably was ice cream. And I
I
do
love your
love
dad.
ice cream. So tell me what you love about ice cream.
I'm so sorry I didn't get a chance to meet your dad. Yeah, here's what I love about ice cream. I don't think that you can eat ice cream and be sad at the same time. Like it is just, it lights you up. So I owned a small ice cream company for a while, specifically for that. I loved making custom flavors for people. It is so unique to you. So there's I just got a request from somebody to make a biscotti espresso ice cream. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. You can't find it, but I can do that. I can create this. It allows for creativity and expression, and again, it is a little nostalgic too. I think about going to the dairy farms with my family and eating my mint chocolate chip ice cream with my sister. And I don't know, on all happy occasions, I think about ice cream.
I mean, who knew when you woke up this morning, you were not thinking you would be grilled on
This is,
topics like this, but here we come. The
I
next
love it.
complicated
I
issue,
love it. Yeah.
biking. What do you love
Again,
about biking?
again, nostalgia. So my family used to take trips. This was our summer trip. We'd take our bikes, we'd pack all of our tents and gear into panniers, and we would bike around the state parks of Vermont for summer and stop at country stores to get ice cream for lunch. Yeah, biking was always a big part of my life. I remember riding bikes around the neighborhood. And then as I grew older, I did a lot of biking for JDRF, which is now Breakthrough T1D, the Type 1 Diabetes
Yeah.
Research Foundation. I have several friends and family that have type 1 diabetes. And so I did a lot of century rides to raise money for that charity. So biking is just we call it bike face. It's, running. I'm kind of mad and miserable. My face is all, I hate this. Biking, you can't bike and not have a smile on your face.
I can. But anyway, we'll come back to that later on. So
Yeah.
you mentioned Century Ride. I think
Yeah.
people know, but tell us what that is.
Yeah, it's a 100-mile ride. It's horrible and so wonderful because again, I'm going to bring it back to community. So I did Death Valley 4 times, so 100 miles through Death Valley, which, at 118 degrees, it's cooking out there. And you can get really in your head about I'm not going to make it. The coyote is running alongside you, kind of waiting for you to die. And then here comes a group of riders that come up alongside, like, hey, you need anything? You got some water, we got some this, jump on, let's give you a little pull. And it reinvigorates, it relights everything up and all the reasons that you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, I don't know. Biking is special.
What do you love about traveling?
Well, I can tell you a lot of things that I don't love if you want to be clear. No, every time I travel, I learn. So whether learning that things are never going to go smoothly, and that's okay, that's outside of your control, whether it is getting to a new beautiful location and seeing the cultural differences and the regional differences and how people show up,
Right.
I'm always fascinated by even small ways that people use language differently. I moved to the South. I live in Greenville, South Carolina now, and y'all has become so important to my vocabulary. So yeah, traveling is wonderful in exposing you to all kinds of different languages and cultures and ideas. I don't think I've ever set foot anywhere without learning something.
When can you move to the South, use the word y'all, and not be a fraud?
I mean, immediately.
So
Immediately. Yeah,
is it immediate? Yeah.
here's the thing. I don't know what other people would say. I say immediately because the second I moved to the South, I started using y'all. And that's my bias. I think it's y'all is for y'all. It's for everyone.
It's a great word. All right. So, what about dogs? Only three more. So, hang on for it. What do you love about dogs?
Dogs just have this eternal optimism. They're just delightful creatures. I have two dogs with two very different personalities, but they're just always so full of joy and hope. And I think, if I can embody a quarter of their joy and hope, I'm in a good space.
What do you love about physiology?
I love the idea of its complexity and how any small fluctuation of hormones in one direction causes a whole surge and cascade in another, and how much of our behavior is just controlled by these hormones that we don't even realize are driving so much of our behavior. When I became pregnant, this was a huge recognition because I'd studied physiology
Yeah.
and then I experienced it. And suddenly it was like, I will die for this bundle of cells. And I had no idea that my hormones were working that hard. It's pretty impressive.
That's so good, man. The idea between knowing something and knowing something.
That's it. Yeah.
Uh, for those who may not know exactly what that field even is, you have your PhD in it. What is physiology?
Yeah, physiology is the function of the body. So we talk about anatomy and phys. Anatomy is the structure. If you think about a bicycle, right? Anatomy is the tires and the frame, and the physiology is the riding of it, the action, the how it works, how it operates. So understanding our physiology is understanding all of the hormones that drive our behaviors and the underlying reasons for that.
You've been known now as the PR agent for stress. Unusual job title. It's now yours. Congratulations on it. So the final
Thank
love
you.
question is this: what do you love about stress?
Everything. I love everything about stress. And thank you for that. I feel like I earned that title and I'm very proud of it. I, you know,
You know what? Let me be clear. No one else wanted it.
I
So
know, I
it
know.
is
I
now
guess
yours
it
and you
was
can
mine
wear
for the
it
taking.
proudly. And before you even answer, I'm
Mhm.
so glad you are because we need to have a different conversation around stress these days. And you are.
Exactly.
So stay in front of it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. The reason that I love that title so much and the reason I love stress so much is because you can do so much with it. When we stop fearing stress and instead we invite it in, we recognize what it is, which is just, it's a challenge to our body. And our body responds by saying, oh, I know what this is. Let me give you the energy you need to rise to this challenge and meet it. And when we recognize that, when we recognize this is an enhancing thing. Stress
Mm.
isn't debilitating, it's enhancing. It's allowing our body to perform at its peak. It's why, and I say this a lot, but it's so powerful. It's why Olympic athletes break world records at the Olympics and not at practice. We're breaking world records when the pressure and the stress is at its peak because that's when our body is going, "Oh, I've got all this stress, I can use it." And you don't have to be an Olympic athlete to do this. You can recognize that your body is preparing you to meet the moment and use that energy differently, which is a really powerful concept.
I think it was in your book. I borrowed this stat, but 84% of Americans report that the stress they feel is as difficult, as demanding as experiencing trauma.
Yeah.
So trauma, being hit by a car, falling off your bike, being burned as a kid, whatever the trauma is undoubtedly real.
Mhm.
And 84% of Americans say, and so is my stress. It's as harmful.
Yeah, as debilitating, right?
As
And
debilitating.
this is why I love the title of PR for stress, because wait a second, let's use it differently. This doesn't have to be traumatic. This can be a challenge that we use to grow from. So I don't know if you're familiar with PTSD and PTG. Most people will have heard of PTSD, right? PTSD, which is a really powerful concept. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, about 8% of people who go through trauma will experience some form of PTSD. Over 50% of people who go through trauma will experience PTG, which is post-traumatic growth. And this is where I feel like stress is in alignment here too. Yes, we understand stress and it's bad and we got to get rid of it. It's debilitating. Or it's also an opportunity to grow and have this massive transition in our life and our body, in the way we show up and how we create community in our purpose. I think one of my favorite studies looked at makes for a meaningful and purposeful life. The number one correlate was stress, past stressful events, current level of stress, and even future worry and anxiety. And
Mm.
I'll tell you, when I saw that, I was like, nah, that can't be right. So I did a follow-up study on this, and I'll ask you and your audience this question for clarity, because I think this is a really helpful way to reframe what stress means. If you had to think about a project or an accomplishment that you're most proud of, got it?
I
Now
do.
go back in time to when you were in the middle of that project. What was your stress level?
Right.
Yeah, scale of 0 to 100, and people are off the charts. And so this idea of recognizing, stress is a barometer for how much we care.
Mm.
Nobody gets stressed out over their shoe coming untied. This is meaningful stuff. It's a good thing to be able to use that and recognize that.
I think when people listen to podcasts or they watch the conversation on YouTube or social, it's easy to listen and watch what you and I are talking about and wait for the next question and the next theme or whatever. I want you to unpack that a little bit. So you asked me, like, John, what was the project? And I immediately thought of three. One was the movie that we are currently working on that has been profoundly stressful. One was a relationship with my wife, who was before that my fiance, before that my girlfriend, before that this dream girl that I
Oh,
hope would maybe call me back one day. And then the third project was children and
mm,
the agony and the gift of delivering and raising and changing diapers and lifting them up through life. Like, duh, so much stress, misery. And the best of my life are these four children by far.
yeah.
So help us understand that. You said, John, when were you most stressful in these projects? Or
Mhm.
I'm sorry, when were you most happy?
Ah,
So walk us through what
this is
that is.
important. This is an
Yeah.
important distinction. So I did not say when were you most happy, because that will not be true.
Right.
Stress and happiness don't necessarily align, but stress and purpose do. So you can be very happy, kicked back, sipping Mai Tais on the island somewhere. You could be happy, but at the end of the day, you won't feel fulfilled. You won't feel a sense of purpose and meaning,
Mm,
because you don't have stress. So stress actually is the thing that is driving that purpose and meaning. And it doesn't necessarily in the moment mean that you're going to be happy. So my challenge to you and to the listeners is to recognize, not in retrospect, not looking back and going, oh, that time when I had to do that thing with our
right.
kids and it was so stressful and like, oh, it was horrible, but it was really, really meaningful. Instead of looking back in retrospect on these, to be able to recognize in the moment when we're feeling that stress, that is a tiger, right? That is a thing that is charging us, that is scary, where we get to invite it in, where
Mm.
we actually have control to say, thank you for being here. I recognize how meaningful you're going to be in my life. That's a different relationship with stress than trying to fight against it.
You mentioned PTSD.
Mhm.
What do folks who experience PTSD, the growth after the trauma,
Yeah.
what are they doing either through omission or commission that maybe those who are experiencing PTSD are not?
The really interesting research on PTG, post-traumatic growth, is that most people aren't actively working through a program. It happens spontaneously. Now, can you increase your odds of experiencing PTG rather than PTSD? Sure. But what you're getting from PTG is a deeper connection to self, a deeper connection to community, a deeper connection to something bigger than self, more reason and purpose in your life. There are these 5 factors that researchers, I think it was Tedeschi and Calhoun, looked at. And all of these incredibly traumatic experiences, people say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And you don't think becoming a paraplegic, best thing that ever happened to me. These are wild stories.
Right.
But when people recognize that that stressor forced them to learn and adapt and grow in new ways, it actually can bring more meaning and purpose. So PTSD, again, not to ignore or diminish that is real. And I think that 8% is really low. I think most of us experience most symptoms of PTSD every day.
Yeah.
Um, and that's because life is traumatic. So recognizing that we're having these emotions around repeated stressors, and then trying to challenge our mindset to say, does this need to be debilitating? How can I shift this? What can I get curious about that will allow me to kick my brain out of the fear response and
Mm.
move me toward an adventure? So the difference between adventure and ordeal is what we tell ourselves. It sounds a little cheesy, but man, losing luggage, as simple as that. I lost my luggage coming here and I'm just like, oh, okay, well, what adventure are you going to have as a result of this, right? I'm going to meet new people. I'm going to have some fun shopping for new clothes. You just create these little adventures in life when you can't control the outcome.
Mm. When you say that, it sounds almost cheesy
It
and
does.
ineffective. So instead of you sharing the personal story, share
Yeah.
the statistics around this. So the folks' perception around
Mhm.
stress can profoundly affect longevity.
Favorite study. This
It's
is my favorite
a
study.
wild, this is wild. So I really
Yeah.
hope our listeners
Yeah.
pull the chair up close and turn the radio up a little bit louder.
Okay, I'm about to scare you all. And I don't like using fear as a motivator for challenging your stress mindset, but listen close because I'm also going to save your life. So, this study looked at over 20,000 Americans across 8 years. And they asked the most important question they asked was, do you believe stress is harmful to your health? Now, people who have very high levels of stress and also believed that stress was harmful to their health died at very high rates, at 43% higher than controls. That's massive. That is a huge effect. So that's really bad news for all of us out there going, yeah, we know stress is bad and we're really stressed out, right? That should have you shaking in your shoes. All right, here's the good news. The good news is that people who had that same very high level of stress, but simply believed that stress wasn't necessarily bad for them, they had the lowest mortality rate of the entire study. Lower, in fact, than people who's had very little stress in their life.
Right.
So that it's not the stress that's killing you. It's your belief that the stress is bad for you that is the major factor. So if that doesn't motivate you to go, oh,
Right.
let me challenge how I'm thinking about stress. I don't know what will.
Rebecca, give us some tools that help us do that.
Yeah,
Because even the folks who seem mellow and chilled, they're dealing with stress. They're just handling it differently.
that's right.
How do we begin to pivot from seeing the luggage as being gone and my life's been ruined to
Yeah.
saying, my goodness, what an adventure. I've been longing
Yeah.
for a new blouse and a new set of shoes.
Let me walk you through that. Before I do, I want to hit on something that you said just now, which I think is so important, which is that everybody has stress. Everybody. In fact, our research from last year found that the average American is carrying 2.7 major stressors at any one time. And when I say major, I'm talking about a divorce, a death in the family, taking care of aging parents, major
Right.
stressors. Every person you meet. So, if that doesn't inspire you to offer a little extra kindness and recognize everybody's dealing with this. My story is your story is my story in some ways. So starting there,
But
everybody's got it. So how do we challenge the stress mindset that we have? The first step, I call it inviting the tiger in for tea. And the tiger here is a metaphor for the stress because our stress response is really built for 3 minutes of screaming terror through the jungle, getting chased by a tiger, right? That's what our stress response is built for. It's not built for all of these pings and dings and travel and this and trying to do, it's not built for that. So, what our brain believes is that every single stressor, losing your luggage, your life is over. It's a tiger, it's a life and death situation. So, your body produces all of these hormones to help you to survive. Okay, so rather than going into that fight, flight, freeze response, we can simply invite the tiger in. Here's what that looks like. I will spend 3 minutes allowing my body to be in that screaming terror. So this is super normal. Don't feel like I can't get out of the stress. I'm just going to catastrophize. Call your best friend, call your work colleague, call your wife, and just, this is happening. Everything's over. Everything's over. Set that timer for 3 minutes. And when the timer dings, now all of that energy that you've built up can be used to transfer it into something that can be useful. So stage 1, it's not a tiger, invite it in for tea. Stage 2 is the transfer stage. So now we have all of the stress energy and we're going to transfer it into excitement. So what people don't recognize is that our physiology, we can't really control how heightened we get, our arousal state, right? When we are heightened, when we have that stress response, most people try to calm down, which is terrible advice.
Right.
Because you can't stop your adrenal glands from releasing adrenaline. You can't do it. And this is where people get frustrated. They're like, I'm so stressed out and I'm trying to calm down and it's not working. Yeah, it won't. It won't. So stop giving that advice to yourself. Instead, we're going to use all of that energy that we have in this heightened state. And we're going to transfer it to excitement. And we do that through curiosity. Curiosity and fear cannot coexist. So there's literally no brain mechanism that allows for those two things to exist together. Because for 200,000 plus years, right, nobody ever had a tiger charging them and went,
This is strange.
yeah, like I wonder how fast it's coming. How many stripes does it have? So when we're willing to just get curious to start asking ourselves question, what's the best thing that could happen? How will I grow from this? What can I learn? We kick ourselves out of that immediate life and death stress response and into a possibility, right? Moving towards something. Fear is going to say anything but failure, anything but rejection, anything but the situation that is happening to me right now. When we get curious, we start to move towards something. So that's a really powerful switch that we can make just by asking questions. All right, so now, even, and this is an important point, you will not feel excited. I'm just going to say, you might be able to feel a little bit of excitement, but you're still going, yeah, but my bags are still lost and right? That's okay. There's a fascinating Harvard study that asked 2 groups of people. One group was forced to say, I'm excited. And the other group was forced to say, I'm trying to calm down, or I calm down, just try and take some breaths. And then they were both put in a situation where they had to give a presentation. And neither of them felt more excited or more calm. But the ones that simply told themselves that they were excited, they were rated by others as being more excited, more knowledgeable, more competent. And the reason for that is when we present ourselves as excited, and that's just throwing our shoulders back, putting a smile on, like walking in confidently, going, I'm curious, here we go. Our body not only gives us feedback that we are excited, but so do the people around us. So our community starts to say, oh, wow, she's handling this really well. And when you get that feedback yourself, you're like, yes, I am. Thank you for noticing. And we do believe in ourselves more. And so these kind of feedback loops are so important. And your anxiety and stress will always be there. Don't expect that little corner of your brain to just shut down. They're there. You're just adding another element, which is I'm excited. Okay, so you're choosing adventure. So now we've got kind of our butterflies in alignment. The question is, where do we point them? And the final stage is the trajectory. Where do you want to point all of this stress energy? And what most people try and do, again, because this is what we're told, is to try and we go meditate, we go do some one-on-one coaching, we try and get a good night. All of those things are good. I'm not trying to say they're not. But a study of 90 workplace interventions, including all of those, and then 87 others, found that none of them worked to mitigate stress.
Wow.
With the exception of one. And it was community service to others. So when we have all of our stress in alignment, the next question to ask is, how will my next action serve someone else? And that points us along a trajectory that mitigates our stress, that allows us to use it for good and helps ourselves.
Rebecca, so it's like formulaic. It's a
Hmm.
relatively simple process to follow. I think most of us can imagine a day when we lose the luggage and we're able to walk through this.
Right.
I think many of us, though, listen to podcasts for the person we're traveling with.
Mm,
And so then for those of us whose child loses the luggage, whose
yeah.
roommate loses the luggage, whose partner loses the like, how do we help them in their relationship with stress and
Mm.
anxiety and loss, and then pivoting forward into the next right step?
Such a good question. I would teach them this formula, first of all, and then I'd be the person who they called. So that first 3 minutes of screaming terror, let them go there. Let them have that time. Because the more we fight against it, right, the more we're like, I don't want this stress. I don't want this. The more it creeps in and becomes, a bigger piece. So the first thing I'd say is teach them the formula, be the person on the call for those first 3 minutes of screaming terror, and then say, hey, what's the first small action that you can take toward this stressor?
Right.
Run toward the roar. What does it look like when you run at the tiger? And that's going to force them to get into curiosity. They may not want to be there, but that's going to force them to get into curiosity. And then they're going to go, huh, the smallest thing I can do right now is X. Good. Go do that. Action is an incredible cure-all for
Totally
stress,
right.
right? Because we often will sit in inaction. We like to just say, oh, this is happening to me and I have no control. Yep. So when we take action, we take back our agency and say, I have control over this. And we can take one small action that allows us to feel like we're in control again.
Mm.
And that cycles forward.
We were doing an event about a year and a half ago, and the auditorium was sold out. So 1,100 people, which then led to people online. And it went from 100 to 1,000 to more than 10,000 folks online who were all going to be participating in this. And about 8 minutes before the curtain draws up, the internet drops down. And so I'm in the back trying to mitigate this with the team. And right before we go out, the lady in charge goes, we're not going to get them on. And my thought is like, dude, there are like 10,000 friends online who are all
Yeah.
anticipating the curtain going up for them too. And so I start spiraling down. And then all of a sudden, they play the intro song. The curtain draws forward. I'm like, all right, dude, step. And the act began with me walking out there with a wheelbarrow. But there was just something powerful about bending down, picking up the handles of the wheelbarrow, and stepping on stage, like leave
Mm-hmm.
behind the uncontrollables, the word we were talking about a moment ago, the agency in front of you. Get the butterflies to fly in formation. They are flying, but now you got them
Right.
in formation toward a target, ultimately recognizing it isn't about you. Almost all
There
and
it is.
almost all stress, I feel, I can't speak for all of our listeners or you, it's almost always about me.
That's
Is my
right.
hair in the right place? Is my shirt still tucked in? Did I pull the zipper back up? It's always about me. Will I look
Mhm.
good in the next suit I buy if you lose my last luggage?
That's right.
It's all about me. And
That's
when
right.
life can become all about others, the one in front of you in that moment, I find a whole lot of anxiety fades away.
And neurologically, that's exactly what's happening. So you're moving out of the fear-based ego center and into service to others. And when you do that, oh, okay. This is great. I have the opportunity now rather than I'm going to I'm going to bomb, I'm going to this, right? That action is so powerful. And I talk a lot about the power of action. I think we can get stuck, and this is a fear response. This is the stress response. We get
Right.
stuck in this indecision paralysis or just this cost of inaction that I don't think we measure thoroughly enough because it's easy to measure all the costs of our actions, right? Like I might bomb, my luggage isn't going to come in, and then I'm not gonna have anything to wear, and then the curtain isn't gonna go up, and all my friends are gonna judge me, and we can measure all of those costs.
Right.
But what we forget to measure is what if we don't? What if we don't take that first step on? What if we don't give it a shot? What if we don't go all in to that relationship, that job, that next big decision? If we don't, uh, that's going to fester because we'll never have data. When we take that action, we get data, we get feedback. Oh, that worked, that didn't. That was a step forward. Oh, now I need to pivot this way. But that cost of inaction can be really, really stressful for people.
So I'm going to read you a few quotes that I've written down from you, and
Oh,
then you
wow.
tell me and a few of my friends what you're saying.
Okay, I'll do my best.
You don't need more courage. You just need less comfort.
Yeah. Look, I think it's hilarious that we pay people to stress us out these days. Like you've heard of Spartan racing. Hmm? Your brain and your body, a lot of people's brains and bodies have gotten so comfortable in this modern world. When you think about the modern world that we live in, and you think about what our brains are built for, our brains are built for survival in the savannah, where you are hunting your food. You only eat what you kill. And we're sitting here today talking over Zoom, and our biggest like challenge and threat is the Wi-Fi might go out. It's a total reframe. So yeah, I don't think you need more courage. You just have to recognize that you're surrounded by comfort.
Mm,
You're surrounded by comfort. And when you're willing to step out of that comfort into discomfort a little, you recognize, oh, even this isn't that bad. This isn't a life and death situation. This isn't a life and death situation. This isn't a life. And you begin to inoculate your brain against real stressors.
love it. We weren't wired to be brave, you say, but we can choose to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said before. It would make no sense in our evolutionary past to step out into face the tiger. That's that's a life and death thing. But and so our brains today, again, wired for safety, wired for holding back, wired for just maybe playing it a little bit safe. But we have the opportunity, we have the privilege of choosing to take one small, brave step forward. And when we do, the results, that's when, in the stress, when meaning and purpose come together to create our most beautiful, powerful lives.
Mm. You write and talk a lot about community and relationship and family. So this question is around one of those quotes. We
Mm,
confuse belonging with fitting in. One demands authenticity, the other demands performance.
yeah, you can belong just about anywhere. You just have to show up and put on the right suit, put on the right colors, put on the right logos. But to really truly connect, to feel welcomed, to feel a part of that community, showing up authentically, and it is one of the scariest things to do. But I'll say that every stressful moment is an opportunity to build or betray yourself. And when you show up authentically, you can begin to build who you actually are and live more bravely and connect more deeply to the people around you.
Final quote. Your
Mhm.
brain will lie to you every day. The key is learning which voices to listen to and which ones to challenge.
Yeah, I have nothing more to say on that. That's
Well,
no. Look,
so
I will
here's
say,
what I need you to
I'll say
say is
this.
how
Yeah.
do you determine which
Mhm.
one is a liar and which one is your friend?
Oh, it's a great question. I think it requires curiosity. I think it requires having conversations with yourself. So remember, you are not your brain. You are the observer of your brain. Think about this. You get to have a conversation with the voices in your head. This sounds a little bit schizophrenic. And yes, and one of my favorite examples of this is your brain will always tell you that the extra deep fried chicken with the ice cream is the right choice because your taste buds are going to light up and they're like that. And your stomach is going to say, don't you dare do that to me ever again. Right? So our brain is going to lie to us and say, you need to do this because it is the safe choice, it is the tasty choice, it is the easy choice. And the conversation that I would challenge each of us to have is to step back and go, good, thank you. How will that feel to my 8-year-old self? And how would that feel to my 88-year-old self? How will that feel to me tomorrow? How can I be kind to myself in this moment? Is that the kindest thing that I can do for myself, for my community, for my family? When we ask this very simple series of questions, we get some answers from our brain that might be different from the initial lie, which is, oh, yeah, I'm trying to layer down fats and sugars so you survive this cold, harsh winter, but we have heating, so you're gonna be fine. Let's choose a salad. That's probably a better choice. And that's a simple example. But I think just pausing to question our instincts takes a lot of the power of their initial drive out of it.
We have 7 questions that tether all of our guests together. They're called the Live Inspired Seven. But before I step you through them, the final question on this part of the episode is when you speak And when you wrote this book, Springboard, what do you hope your audiences, wherever you find them and however they bump into you, might walk away with? So, how do you hope people, after they engage with you, are better because they did?
I think the biggest hope is that they feel less broken. The self-help industry today, I think, thrives as a result of people feeling unworthy and broken. And my hope is that people can recognize that you're not supposed to get rid of stress. You can't, in fact, get rid of stress. That is not a you problem. It is a community-wide problem. It is much larger than you. When we recognize that, we can begin to shift this mindset and to recognize stress, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Let's change our relationship with it to use it as fuel. And just recognizing that you have the ability to do that. And it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be simple, and it's not going to be straightforward. It's going to take some time, but that
Right.
you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. That's what I hope people walk away with.
All right, Rebecca, you're about to run the gauntlet. So here we come. The Live Inspired Seven begin with
Yes.
this. These questions. Number
Okay.
one, what's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
Oh, that's impossible. That's impossible. They're so good. Um, you know what? Probably The Giving Tree.
For the folks who haven't read that, there were six and they forgot they did read it because all of us were forced to at some point. A nun stood over us and slapped our wrists until we read it. What is The Giving Tree about?
The Giving Tree is about a little boy and his relationship with a tree. And he goes to this tree requesting apples because he's hungry. And he goes to this tree requesting a branch or some shade or some, it keeps making these requests and they become larger and larger and larger. And the tree gives and gives and gives and gives and eventually is cut down. And this book has evolved with my evolution as well. Because at first I was like, oh, well, that's what people do for each other. They just give their whole selves. And and I think especially for mothers and fathers too, but especially for mothers in this culture, I think that's the expectation. I will cut myself off to serve you. And I hope that's not the message that I'm leaving people with stress. Like, yes, you can serve others, but in serving others, it's protective of you. Don't
Right.
cut off your own branches. You can serve them continually with shade and apples and offerings. And there's a
Awesome.
point of that returning as well. But it was a really impactful book, yeah, in
It's a
multiple
great book.
levels.
What is one positive characteristic or one beautiful trait that you possessed as a little girl in upstate New York growing up that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today?
As a little kid, I was incredibly gregarious. I had no fear of approaching anybody. I didn't feel like I was an imposter in any room. And so I would walk up to any adult, any titled adult, and I would ask them questions. I was incredibly curious. And I think that is something that I try to model today is, whoever you are. I had the privilege of meeting Beyonce's dad the other day, Matthew Knowles. Hey, buddy. And we just had a great conversation because it wasn't, oh my gosh, this is a person who has a big thing, who has another person everybody has their stuff.
Yeah,
Everybody has their own, putting their own pants on the same way. And I think there's a beauty in that connection and that ability. So I try and emulate that 8-year-old.
third question is you experienced something like this at age 8, but I'm curious if it happened today, how you would respond. So here we go. If your home caught fire
Yeah.
and all living things, including your two dogs, are out safely, you have an
Yeah.
opportunity of running back in and grabbing one item. What's that one thing you would grab?
Photographs. Photographs. Yep. That's it. I mean, there's everything else can be replaced. Those photographs are living memories that I always want to hold on to.
Hmm. If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous beach day and have a long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who would you like to be next to?
There's a lot of people that come to mind and a lot of people that have passed that I would want. And I don't want to upset the order of the universe. I'd sit with my sister, who's still with us today. Um, I'd sit by her side and I would have the conversation probably about those people.
Mm,
And time is so precious, and the people that we have the opportunity to share this world in this moment in time together, what a privilege. What a
right.
privilege. So I don't want to waste a second of that with the people that are still here with me.
What's the best advice your parent, your sister, grandparents, neighbors, teacher,
Yeah.
roommate, whoever it was, best advice you've ever received is?
Ugh, don't let your options be your burdens.
Ooh, tell me what that means.
It means we live in abundance, and it's very easy for us to go, what if I do this instead of this, or that instead of this, or you have an option. Don't let it be a burden.
That's awesome.
Choose a path, move forward.
What advice would you give yourself at age 20?
I think at age 20, I was still stuck in trying to prove myself. I was really, really needing to be somebody. And I would say to my 20-year-old self, let go and lean into kindness.
Mm. I happened to be interviewing someone yesterday, a very, very, very successful guy, and he said the very same thing as you just did.
Mm.
And then I said, when did that finally relent? And he said, it still hasn't.
Yeah. I was like,
And I thought, like, man,
man, I
that's
wish I
so,
could.
so beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, man, we're still pursuing something and we still don't think we're enough. And that 20-year-old needed to hear it. And maybe the older version of herself or himself in front of me, maybe we need to hear it too. You're enough.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that is, I often do a meditation where I'm on my deathbed and I have this 8-year-old version of myself come up and like trying to pull me out to play. And the idea being when I'm laying there, what is the thing that I regret the most? What is the thing that I wish I could do now?
Right.
Um, and often it comes back to stop trying to prove yourself. Like you don't need to get another degree or get another piece of paper or be on this show to prove your just add value to people's lives. Add value to lives.
Well, Dr. Rebecca Heiss, it has been said, my friend, that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence.
Mm.
How would you like yours to read?
Oh, well, look, I don't know that we can start with all great people. Let's just say she was a person. I hope that I would be remembered just by, I think, bringing joy. She brought joy and kindness to the world. That's it. That's it.
4 degrees, 2 books, 700 speeches. And what ultimately did Rebecca do?
Joy and kindness.
She brought joy and kindness into the world. Dr. Rebecca Heiss, I want to thank you for the book Springboard. I want to thank you for joining us on the Live Inspired podcast. And I want to thank you for bringing joy and
Mm.
kindness into a world longing for both.
Thank you.
I
Thank
also
you.
want to thank you for reminding us that maybe stress isn't the thing to be avoided but embraced. What a good reminder that might be.
Cheers to that.
My friends, that is Dr. Rebecca Heiss. My name is John O'Leary, and today is our day. It is a gift. Live inspired.
Well, one of my favorite takeaways from Rebecca's conversation is that trauma does not have to break us. Sometimes it can build something new and lead to a deeper connection of purpose, community, and maybe even self than there was before. My friends, if you enjoyed this conversation, you will love my conversation from a couple years back with Michaela Heiss. She is a journalist. She's the author of Bouncing Forward, where she explores how we grow through adversity. She shares powerful lessons from survivors of trauma, and she offers practical ways to turn pain into purpose. If you are navigating a hard season, and who isn't, or you're just longing for more meaning, and who is not, well, then this episode is packed with insight, resilience, and hope for you. You can check out that episode way back. You ready for this one? Episode 4 with Michaela Heiss. You can learn how to get there by just cruising with me right now to our primary website, johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. I'll have a link that will take you way back in time to episode 4. Well, leaders, friends, family, I want to thank you, as we always do, for being part of our Live Inspired podcast family around here. We are grateful for you. We got some really exciting podcasts coming up. You will want to be aware of them. We're going to be bringing on shortly all of the stars, all of the leaders from the film Soul on Fire. It's coming up right around the corner. To ensure you don't miss an episode, make sure you subscribe to our Live Inspired podcast, wherever that little subscribe link is. However you tuned in this time, make sure you subscribe. It's one cool way to make sure these keep filling up your feed with worthy, life-giving content. And if you haven't yet told someone about the podcast, do so now. Wherever you work, you worship, you work out, let them know that you check out the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary, and so should they. So my friends, for this time and until next time, this is John O'Leary, and today is your day. What a gift. Live inspired.
Keeley Companies was started almost 50 years ago by the one and only Larry Keeley. What started as a small family-owned paving company in St. Louis has grown to a nationally known full-service construction, development, and restoration partner. Larry the Legend, as he is affectionately known, has been a part of this growth every step of the way and continues to provide guidance as his son Rusty, my buddy, drives their vision and achieves results on purpose. His unwavering foundation of a family culture with a focus on people has gotten Keeley Companies to where they are today, and their journey is truly just beginning. To learn more about Larry the Legend and Keeley Companies, check them out at KeeleyCompanies.com.